All right, jury's out the room. Now, I understand, Mr. Kirschenbaum, my staff attorney, April Jeffers, just handed this emergency motion to me. Now, this is a criminal action, State of Georgia versus Neuman, 11 CR 1364. Yes, sir. You are not a party to this action, so out of a courtesy, I'm going to give you permission to approach this podium and tell me what you want to tell me.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you very much for this indulgence, Your Honor. I filed this emergency motion during the break following Mr. Peters' opening statement. And while I'm not
It was filed in on February 21st, 2012, stamped at 12:56 p.m. Yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor. And while I'm not a party to these proceedings, I represent Andrea Sneiderman, who is the widow of Rusty Sneiderman. And the state has informed me that she will be the first witness called following this motion, I presume. And the purpose of the motion is brought on by the fact that Mr. Peters made it clear in his opening statement that he plans to put Andrea Sneiderman basically on trial and shift the blame for this crime from his client to my client. And the way he's going to do it, Your Honor, is to completely focus on the more salacious aspects of this case, whether or not they're true. And under 17-8-53, the court has the discretion to, on its own motion or on the motion of a party or its attorney, to decide whether to clear the courtroom for testimony or whether to exclude some part of the audience from testimony. Now, Your Honor, this case, as you know, is being televised. This past 16 months, 15 months has been extraordinarily difficult for Andrea Sneiderman and for her family. She has two small children, Your Honor, ages 6 and 3. And her testimony, memorialized, if it's televised, will have an enormously adverse impact on her children. It'll be devastating to them. In addition, what 17-8-53 says, if evidence is vulgar and obscene or relates to the improper acts of the sexes, or relates to the improper acts of the sexes, the presiding judge shall have the right, in his discretion and on his own motion, to clear the courtroom or all or any portion of the audience. I'm not asking for you to clear this courtroom, Your Honor, but what I am asking for you to do to protect Andrea Sneiderman, to protect her children, and to protect the morals of all people and children who may hear this case, that you enter an order on your own motion at my request that Andrea Sneiderman's testimony not be televised. Why? Because it's going to focus on alleged improper conduct of or acts of the sexes, which is the specific language of 17-8-53. And so we're asking not only to protect society, to protect Ms. Sneiderman, but also to protect her children. We're asking for her testimony not to be televised under that under that law.
All right, thank you. Anything from the state?
Judge, she is my first witness. In our conversations with her, she has indicated that the information that she seeks to protect does not exist. So I have a hard time joining that. Also, the statute, and I just point out what my duty is as an officer of the court, by the statute, I don't believe Mr. Kirschenbaum's got this standing to file the motion the way the statute's written.
I understand.
That's our only response, Judge.
Anything from the defense?
Your Honor, we take no position on Mr. Kirschenbaum's motion.
All right. Mr. Kirschenbaum, as out of a courtesy, I did recognize you. All right. At this point in time, Mr. Kirschenbaum, I'm going to ask you, you may be seated. Bring in my jury, please. All right, lawyers and parties, you may be seated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I indicated earlier, thank you very much for your patience. Don't draw any inferences one way or the other. Anytime the court needs to take a break or have something heard out of your presence. At this point in time, I'm going to direct the state of Georgia to call its first witness. At this point in time, you will actually start hearing from witnesses. Call your first witness.
Yes, sir. State calls Andrea Sneiderman, Judge.
All right. Come on up. You'll be sworn in by Deputy Moore.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that affirm testimony you give to the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
State and spell your name for the record.
Andrea Sneiderman. ANDREA SNEIDERman.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you cannot hear at any time, just raise your notepad and I will have her speak louder. All right, you may proceed. She's been sworn.
Yes, Judge, thank you. And please do speak into the mic, man. Speak
Okay.
up. Okay. Ma'am, did you know Rusty Sneiderman?
Yes,
How did you know Rusty?
he is my husband.
I'm going to ask you to speak up just a little bit.
He's my husband.
Thank you, ma'am. And when were you married?
We were married December 30th of 2000.
And do you have children?
Yes,
How many?
2.
How old are they?
Currently 6.5 and almost 3.5.
Okay. And how old were they on November 18th, 2010?
5 and 2.
On that date, November 18th, 2010, was Rusty employed?
No,
What was he doing at that time?
he was starting a company, a new venture for cell phone voicemail recordings of celebrities on your voicemail.
Okay. What was Rusty's education?
We met at Indiana University. He had a undergraduate business degree like myself in accounting. And he then went to get his MBA at Harvard Business School.
And did he get that MBA?
Yes.
Okay. What type of work did Rusty do after Harvard?
When he graduated in 2002, he did relationship management for Siebel Enterprises. And then after that, he went to work in wealth management, working to sell life insurance to high net worth families that use life insurance as an estate planning tool. And he did that for quite some time. And then, while still employed in that job, became the CFO of a major corporation here in Atlanta, a family. They call them family officers. And he...
What was the name of that company?
Bob Patillo.
Okay. Was that Discovery Point?
No.
Okay. Proceed.
He did that kind of family officer work for a while, then left that job to start some of his own ideas in insurance, an insurance website to connect insurance agents with each other for leads, things like that.
Okay.
After that, he went to work for J.P. Morgan doing wealth management, private wealth management. He was the client relationship person for the families that were clients of the bank. And after he was let go from that job, he looked for a job and found a job at Discovery Point, where he was essentially the chief operating officer of the entire franchise of 60 daycares.
Okay. And at the time of November 18th, he was attempting to start his own company again?
That's correct.
Okay. On November 18th, 2010, did you know the defendant?
Yes.
And how long had you known him in November of 2010?
Since March, end of March, maybe when I interviewed or was hired, but started at GE in April.
Did you know the defendant prior to your start at GE?
No, sir.
Okay. And how long had the defendant been your boss at GE in November of 2010?
About 7 months, I guess. 6 to
Was it that your entire time?
Yes.
Okay. What were your duties at GE?
I was a quality systems manager. It's basically a fancy word for being a project manager over the quality management systems that GE puts in place to help with their product creation.
And were you then a manager of some form?
I was.
Okay. And the defendant was your boss?
Yes.
What was his title? Do you know?
Director of operations.
And is that a pretty lofty title?
I don't know if it's a pretty important job. He was also had not just operations but finance. He somehow had that responsibility also. He oversaw a budget for the larger group of engineers not just quality management, but for an entire group of systems engineers within GE. So yes, I think it was an important title.
Did your job involve traveling?
Yes.
How often did you travel?
Maybe 5 or 6 times. When I initially was hired at GE, it was agreed that it might be about 20% of my job. That was an issue of mine when I took the job. I didn't want to be away from home very often, and so we came to an agreement that it would only be about 20% of my job. It turned out to be some more of that, but it was presented to me that it was a requirement that I go visit all of the sites that I manage, and that it was important for me to meet the people in those locations, and for some reason it was important to do it soon.
Who told you it was important?
Hemi Neuman.
The defendant. Did you travel with him when you traveled?
Sometimes.
Okay. Did you ever travel for GE without the defendant?
I went to Longmont, Colorado on my own for training. That I traveled without him at that time to Longmont.
Okay. Now let me get back to your family. At the time you started GE, Rusty had had many jobs, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What was the general finances of your family?
We're savers.
Okay.
Always have been. And we, when everyone else is going out to fancy dinners, we're eating peanut butter and jelly at home. So we save our money. And we had a lot of money saved up in the bank.
Okay,
over
now-
time. I've worked many jobs, successful jobs myself. Rusty has made a lot of money over the years. We saved it. Our financial situation was just fine.
Okay.
But we work and live based on what we earn. That's our style of living. We don't live beyond our means. And so in the times that Rusty was unemployed, I was always making consulting income at that time, or he himself was making consulting income at that time.
And consulting income, was that, who were you with at the time?
Me or Russ?
You.
I was with Harvard Business School. I had worked for them when we lived in Boston when he was in school, and I worked for them as a full-time employee, but then when we moved to Atlanta, I was on a critical project. They didn't want to let me go, so I stayed and became a contractor, and for the remaining 8 years, they were my main client. And so I did project management consulting for technology projects for them. I had other small clients in there, but they were my main source of income.
Now, you said you did well, so I'm going to ask you, on November 18th, 2010, approximately how much money did you and Rusty have in the bank?
We probably had about $800,000 in the bank, plus 2 homes.
Where were the homes located?
One was in Dunwoody, Georgia, and we had paid off a good portion of that home, probably half of what that home is worth. And then we have a home at Lake Oconee in Eatonton, Georgia.
You wouldn't consider yourself broke, would you?
No.
Okay. When you were traveling, would you and the defendant talk outside of business as well?
Yes.
Okay. Did you talk about your personal lives?
There's a lot of traveling, and you need a lot of time to talk about who you are and get to know who you are, so yes.
Did that communication involve email and phone contact with you and the defendant?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the
Did
question.
your communication with the defendant involve email as well as text as well as phone?
In general, you're asking?
In general.
Yes.
Okay.
We spoke about work things constantly. I was new to the company, knew nothing about working at a corporation, and he was my sole source of information in getting acclimated to the company.
Okay, prior to November 18, 2010, did the defendant ever relay anything to you about his personal life?
Yes.
What did he relay to you?
In the course of the time that I knew him, he discussed in the beginning how he was very happy with his children, had some financial problems, but happy in his marriage. And then it progressed on into I'm not happy in my marriage, and my wife is we're not getting along. She's confrontational, and those are the natures really of our conversation.
Did he ever talk to you about his early years?
Yes.
Did he talk to you specifically about a boarding school in Israel?
He told me he went to school in Israel.
Did he ever tell you his impression of that experience? A good one, a bad one?
He gave me the impression that it was an extremely positive experience for him. He became a leader at that school and made friends there and felt good about the experience.
Ever tell you about encountering a demon?
No.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Did he ever tell you about encountering a demon? And that was no, correct?
No.
Okay. Okay, did you discuss your personal life with the defendant?
Yes.
And what are some of the things you may have told him?
Everything from hobbies that I had to my children's interests to Rusty's business ventures to previous jobs I had had. Everything you would talk about with someone you're developing a friendship with.
And did you consider him a friend at that time?
Yes.
Okay. During that time, from I guess April to November, did you have the opportunity to observe the defendant?
Yes.
How much time would you spend with him on a regular basis or a normal basis?
Initially, we didn't really work in the same buildings, but there were plenty of opportunities and meetings every other day. I saw him in person, if not every day, for meetings. Constant email communications about work and projects. Constant phone calls. Can you repeat the question?
That's fine. Describe the defendant as you knew him. How would you describe him prior to November 18th?
Extremely friendly individual, caring or pretending to be very caring individual. Seemed to have a very close relationship with all the members of his team, the direct people that reported to him. Seemed to really truly care about all of them and their families and their home life situations. He was very motivated at work to succeed. He was very thorough in his work, really willing to take on any obstacle, willing to, if someone disagreed with him, willing to sort of keep going until he got his way. And that, to be honest, was, at the time, seemed like a admirable quality for someone in a corporation like GE. It can be tough to navigate a company like that, and he seemed to have that figured out.
Prior to November 18, 2010, did the defendant ever tell you that he was having hallucinations?
No.
Did he ever appear to you that he was having hallucinations?
No, he appeared extremely normal individual.
Did you ever hear anything about him having hallucinations?
No.
Did the defendant ever tell you that he saw or talked to a demon?
No.
Did the defendant ever tell you that he saw or talked to an angel figure?
No.
Did you ever see the defendant prior to November 18, 2010 act illogical or irrational?
Never.
Do you ever see the defendant act manically depressed such that he couldn't function?
No.
Do you ever see him confused?
No.
Do you ever see him act bipolar or to have extreme mood changes?
Never.
Was he pretty stable, pretty solid?
Extremely stable person.
Do you remember, did the defendant ever tell you how many children he had?
Yes.
How many children did he tell you he had?
3.
Did he ever tell you that he thought he had 5?
No.
Did he ever tell you that he thought your children were his children?
No.
Did you discuss your children, however, in a normal course with the defendant?
Yes. Normal conversation, yes.
Did you see anything prior to November 18, 2010 that made you think the defendant ever departed from reality?
No.
At any time, did you ever introduce the defendant to Rusty?
Yes.
And why did you introduce the defendant to Rusty?
He had expressed an interest or announced that he didn't feel he was being appreciated at GE necessarily or being advanced as quickly as he should, and thought maybe he could be making more money somewhere else. And Rusty and I have always been in the business of helping other people find their sort of life calling. As hard as it was for Rusty to find that, he definitely helped a lot of people do that for themselves. And so I thought Rusty at the time was also looking to purchase businesses. In this time that he was searching and starting a company, one of the options was to purchase an existing business and get investors and run the operations of the business. And as he was doing that, it came to mind that maybe if he and Hemi connected, that there could be a job that Rusty would suggest or something that he's seeing out there that would be right for him.
Did Rusty and the defendant connect?
Yes.
Did Rusty talk to the defendant in any aspect about financial planning?
I am not aware of that. I only became aware of that through the media.
Okay.
Okay. I know now that they did have that conversation, but that was not known to me at the time.
Prior to November 18, 2010, did the defendant ever express his feelings for you?
Yes.
And first, when did that happen?
We were in Minden, Nevada at a site that I had responsibility for. And that night we went to dinner, and before dinner we were outside the restaurant, and he pulled out his phone and read a poem, and the insinuation of the poem to me was that he had deeper feelings for me than just friends. And we immediately sat down. I remember the first question out of my mouth is, "Are you happy in your marriage?" And
Okay, what you said, deeper feelings. I want you to tell the jury what that was. What did he express to you?
I don't remember what the poem said. The poem insinuated that he thought I was beautiful, which to me meant that he had more romantic feelings for me than just being friends.
Is that the only time prior to November 18, 2010 that he expressed that to you?
It's the only time that he expressed it in that way. There were other times where, in passing or in a fleeting moment or in what seemed like a very silly email, he would seem to be expressing feelings for me. And none of those feelings were ever returned, and I made myself completely clear where I stood.
Do you have any idea what would make, I mean, just what you believe, do you have any idea why the defendant would have these feelings towards you? And I want you to speculate. Do you know why he might have them?
I think I'm a pretty nice person. I'm a very caring person. If you ask any of my friends, I get very involved in their life. I care about them. I get to know them. I try to help them.
Okay.
I did nothing but try to help Hemi Neuman. Suggested to him to seek counseling in his marriage. Suggest that he not move out of his home. And I would do that for any friend.
Okay.
And I think he viewed me as someone that somehow had some sort of expert knowledge, answers.
Did you ever tell Rusty about the poem or the defendant's feelings towards
No.
you?
No.
Why not?
I really thought that I could handle it, and I knew that if I told Rusty that I would quit my job, and it was the only source of income we had at the time, and I thought I had everything under control, and that at the time it seemed benign in the sense that there was no reason to tell him, only to make him emotional and worried about my career and about me.
Did you continue to take business trips with the defendant after the defendant told you how he felt?
Yes, I wasn't really given a choice.
How were you not given a choice?
I was required to visit all of these locations.
By whom?
Hemi Neuman.
Okay.
And he gave me the impression that he was also, it was part of his goals and objectives for the year to visit these places as well.
So you
I
continue.
now realize that he did not have to go on these trips, and that he was going on these trips only to spend more time with me.
When the defendant told you that, did it bother you that he had feelings for you?
Did it bother me?
Did it bother you?
Yes.
Did you express that to the defendant?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever report the defendant's contact to anybody at GE?
No.
Why not?
I would have been fired.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your response.
I would have been fired.
All right, go ahead.
You've spent a lot of time in corporate.
I have not.
You have not?
No, I have not.
So you had no knowledge how it would work if you reported that?
I think that it's fairly clear in writing how those things are handled, but I think that any woman that works in a corporation that has just started her career over again, almost for the second time, knows that if you were to report something like that, and you've only worked at the company for 2 months, 3 months, your chance of success at that company are pretty limited.
On June 30th, 2010, were you on a GE trip with the defendant to Norfolk, Virginia?
Yes?
On June 30th, did you have dinner with the defendant in Norfolk?
I don't remember. I'm certain the answer is yes. We had dinner every time we went out of town.
Do you remember during that dinner sharing a bottle of wine?
I think almost every time I sat down to a business dinner, I had a bottle of wine. Oh, shared a bottle of wine.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm going to show you, ma'am, what's been marked State's Exhibit number 8. It's stipulation page 4802. And that's 8. Can you identify that for me, ma'am?
It's a receipt for dinner.
And is that dated at the right time for your Norfolk trip?
I have no idea. I don't know what date we went on what trip. I don't have a recollection of that, but I'm sure that you're right.
Okay.
It says Norfolk, Virginia. I did go to Norfolk, Virginia. I don't remember if that's the exact day, but I'm certain that it's close to that day.
On that receipt, do you see a $50 bottle of wine?
I see a bottle. Most of the stuff's in Italian, but yes, I see a $50 charge.
Okay. Would you normally expend or expense a $50 bottle of wine?
I never picked the wine that we drank. So
That wasn't my question, but would that be normal then for the defendant at your dinner to buy a $50 bottle of wine?
I don't know what the normal amount of money would be that he would spend on a bottle of wine.
Okay.
I'm not sure that that was entering into his mind at the time.
Okay. Judged by stipulation, State's 8 is in respectfully.
All right, it's submitted. Without objection. You may continue.
Yes, sir. A question for you. Why would you share a bottle of wine at dinner, far away from home, without your family there, with a man that just expressed those feelings to you?
I worked in consulting, and I've had many jobs since then, of which drinking a bottle of wine at dinner while you're out of town is very common place. And drinking a bottle of wine did not enter into my mind, into my psyche, that was relevant to, I'm sorry, because when I told him that I wasn't interested, he seemed like everything was fine.
Okay, so at the time...
He understood and respected my decision, and I felt very comfortable that he could continue a normal friendship regardless of how he expressed his feelings to me.
So, I guess in the short run, that didn't bother you or give you any cause for pause that you were sharing a bottle of wine with him?
That's correct.
Okay. On July 17th, do you remember the defendant sending you an email concerning Ruby Falls?
I do not have that recollection. What's Ruby Falls?
Okay. And Judge, may I approach?
You may.
This is stipulation page 4861 and 4862. I'm going to hand you State's Exhibit number 9. Can you identify that for me, please?
I'm sorry, read the whole email? Is that what you meant?
Can you just identify it? Is that your email address, the defendant's email address?
It is my email address, and it is his email address.
Okay. Do you remember? Take a second to look at State's Exhibit 9. Do you remember that?
I don't, but I'm sure that now that I read it,
I mean, that is your email address.
it's my email address.
Okay.
Do you need to look at that document and refresh your recollection? You may.
Uh-huh.
Follow me on that email. From Hemi Neuman in the middle, it says, "It's a waterfall in a cave.
Right.
Yes, and wishing you were there."
Yeah.
How did you respond?
he says it's a waterfall and a cave. Yes, wishing we were there. I wish I could. And then he says, what hotel are you in?
Look
There was
up
one.
and see how you responded.
I says, ditto. I honestly don't remember the hotel. I will have to check tomorrow. A Hilton property. We're talking about a hotel that we were staying in, I guess, for one of the trips.
I understand. He's there with his family at Ruby Falls, wishing you were there, and you responded ditto. Why would you respond ditto?
I don't know if that's the part of the email I was responding to, and I think I can only say that I might have been responding to the fact that he talked about tranquility and a nice place that was peaceful, because he does say that, and I hope for peace in my life, and my life was has been pretty busy when I was working there, so I'm sure that that's what I was thinking when I was responding.
Okay. Judge, I move to admit 9. It's already stipulated to, sir.
All right, now is there a public objection?
When you traveled for GE without the defendant, did he ever show up even though he did not have GE business at that location?
Yes. Well, I know now that he didn't have GE business, but that was not my understanding at the time.
Which trip are you talking about?
I was in Longmont, Colorado, and he showed up.
So you're stating now that the defendant did show up at Longmont?
He showed up in Longmont, but not. It was not my understanding it was to see me. That has only been understood by me based on now what I've heard.
Do you remember telling One second, Judge.
You may.
Do you remember telling the police when they interviewed you that the defendant did not show up at Longmont?
No, I don't think I ever discussed the Longmont trip with the police.
Judge, at this time, I'm going to ask the court to read the transcript charge to the jury. I intend to, with the court's permission, play an excerpt from a recorded statement from this witness.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me just give you these instructions at this point in time. Members of the jury, a recording will be and has been omitted in the evidence, and there is also a transcript of that recording. It is the recording and not the transcript which constitutes evidence in this trial. You, the jury, must determine for yourselves what was said on the recording. If you cannot understand the content of the recording, you ought to ignore the corresponding transcripted portion of the recording. Any discrepancies between the recording and the transcript ought to be resolved in favor of the recording. All right, those are the instructions.
Thank you, Judge.
You may proceed and continue.
Do you remember telling Chief Sides on January 5th, 2011, that the defendant was not in Longmont with you?
He did not go to Longmont with me. That's correct.
You said he was not in Longmont with you.
I don't remember almost anything I said in that interview. That was the day after my boss was arrested for the murder of my husband.
I understand. If I show you that recording, would that assist you to remember that statement?
Sure.
Judge, may I play that
You may.
statement? Play number 14, please.
Okay.
Judge, we just played 14. I'm going to move to admit. I've got a CD with the clip for evidence of what we've just played. Move number 14 into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
14 is a verified objection.
Do you remember now telling Chief Sides on January 5th, 2011, that the defendant was not in Longmont?
I can read what's up there. I don't know if that's what that says, but if that's what I said, then that's what I said.
Okay. When did you go to Longmont?
I don't remember the date. In July.
Okay. July of 2010?
Yes.
When you were in Longmont, did the defendant attempt to have flowers and chocolates and a love note waiting for you in Longmont?
I was not aware of that until it came out in the proceedings here so far. I was not aware of that.
And may I approach, Judge?
You may.
This is stipulation page 4875. I hand you what's been marked State's Exhibit number 10. Can you identify this for me, please?
Okay.
What does that say?
He talks about flowers or he talks about chocolates and flowers that they were supposed to leave in my room. I don't remember receiving this email.
Do you remember your response on the very bottom?
No.
You don't remember responding? So thoughtful and sweet. I knew you might try something like this.
I don't remember responding that, no.
Your Honor, State moves to admit 10. It's stipulated to.
All right, 10 is admitted without objection.
Now, on 10, is that your email address?
It's my email address.
And is that the defendant's email address?
It is.
Ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. While you were in Longmont, did the defendant send you roses in an email?
I don't know.
Approach, Judge.
You may.
Judge, this is Exhibit 11, and it's S 4867 through 69.
And that's through the stipulated evidence?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Ma'am, this is State's 11. Can you identify that for me, please?
Yep.
Is that your email?
It's my email address.
And is that the defendant's email?
It is.
And did you not respond saying, "Those are gorgeous, seriously? I have an appreciation for perfectly open roses. Not sure what else to say, but thank you." Unbelievably thoughtful of you. Is that your response?
That's, I guess, my response, yeah.
And you don't remember receiving that email or sending that email either? Ma'am?
This is now almost 2 years ago, so, but if you have it here, then I suppose that I sent it.
Judge, I move to admit State's 11. It's also admitted.
All right, submitted without objection.
Your Honor, regarding the emails that are stipulated to Mr. Geary, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't have to move to admit it. We would stipulate that they're admitted, just to save him having to say that each time.
All right, I appreciate you giving that offer. Follow my instruction, all right?
I
You may
will, sir.
proceed.
I will, sir.
All right.
And did you make a further response to that email?
No,
Ma'am?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
No, I don't remember the email, every email that I wrote.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your last response, ma'am.
I don't remember every email that I've written.
All right.
And may I approach, Judge?
You may.
Judge, this is number 12. It's S4878.
Thank you.
May I show you what's been marked State's Exhibit number 12? Can you identify that for me, please? Is that your email?
Yes.
Is that the defendant's email?
Yes.
And you respond again, are you kidding me? Nothing here, of course. And then you respond, or he responds, that the receptionist called him the last great romantic. And how did you respond on that email?
You can read it out loud, ma'am, if you can.
At the top.
Yes, ma'am.
He's asking you, how did you respond? So if you see your response in there, read it out loud if you see it.
But I thought it maybe did not work out. Romantic for sure. Talk to you in a few.
Why would you say to him it was romantic?
I said romantic for sure. Romantic gesture. It was a response to what he was saying. I was responding to what he was saying, I guess.
Why would you respond that it was a romantic gesture to the defendant?
He says the receptionist called me the last great romantic.
But he just sent you an email with roses.
Yeah, well, I just really didn't think it was a very big deal.
At that time, and the email is dated July 19th, and you were in Longmont at that time.
Yep.
Were you and the defendant romantically involved?
No.
But you still used the word romantic.
He used the word romantic.
No, ma'am.
And I responded with the same verbiage that he used.
You stated romantic for sure.
Okay, I used the word romantic, sure. In response to him using the word romantic.
Now, you made a distinction a moment ago. Did the defendant have GE business at Longmont, to your knowledge?
I presumed that he did. That's what I was told.
Okay. Did the defendant show up at Longmont when you were there?
Yes.
Did you pick the defendant up at the airport?
Yes.
Did you take him back to Longmont with you?
Yes.
Did you email the defendant back and forth and arrange even to sit next to him on the plane on the flight back?
Oh, I'm sure I did that, because we did that all the time. That was a focused 2-hour opportunity to talk about work for me that I don't really get the rest of the time and during the week.
So that would be normal course of business.
Yes.
Did you and the defendant share a room in Longmont?
No.
Do you know why the Longmont staff would believe that you and the defendant were married?
Only because I've heard now that that's what he said.
Do you have any idea?
No, I don't.
Do you remember asking the Longmont staff to change your room for a larger bed?
No, I remember asking them to change my room, but it was because of the location of the room, not for a larger bed.
Do you remember telling them your room was going to change from one party to 2 parties?
No. There was some loud noise or some issue with my room that I didn't prefer that location. I asked for another location. She told me the place was booked.
Do you remember the defendant telling you during that period that you were in his every thought?
No, I don't remember that,
Okay.
but I'm sure that he did
Now,
tell me those types of things.
did his advances, if I can use that word, did his advances bother you?
They bother me, but given the situation that I was in and that he was my boss, I handled them all with care and just basically shied away from them and did the best I could to keep him at bay.
But these statements from the defendant, you've got no memory of them.
I don't have memory of most emails I write after a 2-year period.
May I approach, Judge?
You may.
Your Honor, this is S-4899. Ma'am, I show you States 15. Can you identify this for me, please?
Mm-hmm.
And does the defendant not say in response that you are in his every thought?
Yep, that's what he said. And I did not respond. I said, try to get some rest, enjoy the day. Every time he would send what seemed like a very mannish email to me, just being a man who has an obsession and an infatuation, it seems, I would change the topic.
Okay.
That was my way of handling it.
Judge, the state moves to admit 15. It's stipulated.
All right, admitted without objection.
Yes, sir. So let me go back to States 14, which was the video clip I played. You now state that the defendant was, in fact, in Longmont.
Yep.
Okay. Why did you tell Chief Sides?
I said that I didn't know. I said I had to think, and then we moved on to something else. I don't. My mind wasn't exactly 100% at that time, so I don't think I could have possibly remembered every detail of every trip that I had, especially under the shock that I was in, given what had just happened the day before.
Once you get back from Longmont, would it be your routine to meet the defendant at hotels in Atlanta?
I never met the defendant at a hotel in Atlanta.
May I approach, Judge?
You may.
Judge, this is 4909.
Thank you.
Show you State's exhibit. Can you identify that for me, ma'am? It's number 16.
Oh yeah, I was in training at the Renaissance Galleria. I was in a week-long training class that GE requires. And we were going to lunch to talk about projects that day. And I had a big project I had to work on for this training that he was helping me with. And so, yes, but the way you're stating it is incorrect.
Okay, but you met him at a hotel in Atlanta.
I was at that hotel for training
Okay.
during the day. This is meeting him during the day outside. It says in the parking lot. Outside the parking lot.
Yeah, but it says lots, park in the lots that say hotel parking and come in. Text me when you get here. It's not, I'm just meeting in the parking lot, correct?
But, yeah, the training was on the first floor in the room there.
I understand.
Okay. I'm not sure what the question is.
The question is that you had told him to come there and come inside.
Yeah, to meet me inside because I thought that's where we were going to meet and talk and have lunch.
But what time is that email sent?
4:42.
In the
PM.
afternoon.
Yeah, in the afternoon.
So we're going to have lunch at about 5 o'clock?
I didn't say, there were many days that week that we met at this hotel while I was in training. I went home this evening,
Okay.
as I did every night.
Yes, ma'am. Judge, that's 16. State would move to admit it. It's stipulated.
All right.
In
Member
fact,
without
in
objection.
fact, this day, we met for coffee after the training for about 45 minutes and sat in the Starbucks on Cobb Parkway to work on my Greenbelt presentation that I had to finish for the project for that week.
Yes, ma'am.
Were you referring to State's Exhibit number 16? Is that
Yes.
what you're holding in? And what's the date on that?
July 26th,
And what time was that last email sent?
4:42.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. On August 2nd, 2010, did you make reservations for a GE trip to Greenville, South Carolina with the defendant?
Yes, we made reservations of which I had to reschedule one of the trips. I don't know if that's the one you're speaking of.
Do you remember where you made the reservations?
I think it's an Embassy Suites. Is that what you asked? What hotel? Is that
Yeah.
what you asked?
Okay.
Embassy Suites.
Do you remember? Okay. And did you make those reservations?
Yeah, I was told to make those reservations.
When you made them, did you request adjoining rooms?
I requested rooms that were close to each other. I don't know if I was specific about adjoining rooms, but as was stated in the opening arguments, that's what I was told to do.
Okay. And you'd mentioned before one of them wasn't. Did you keep that reservation?
It was a mistake.
Okay.
I had forgotten to cancel that trip, and I had to reschedule it, and it was a mistake.
On August 26, 2010, did you and the defendant actually take a trip to Greenville, South Carolina?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay. Who made that reservation?
I don't know.
Okay.
Me, I guess. I mean, usually
How did you get to Greenville?
we drive.
Okay.
He drove his car that time.
You remember what time he picked you up?
Probably about, no, some time in the morning, or mid-morning. I don't remember. I know I didn't go into work that day. I remember being at home with Rusty in the morning. I think I even got to take the kids to school that day.
Okay.
So it was sometime in the morning time. I don't know what time.
Judge, may I approach?
You may.
Judge, this is stipulation 4947. I show you what's been marked State's Exhibit number 17. You can identify that as
Sure. Yep.
So I ask you again, what time did the defendant pick you up?
12:15.
Okay. Your Honor, State moves to admit 17. It's stipulated.
All right. It's submitted without objection.
And do you remember receiving that email?
Okay.
No. I mean, do
Yeah,
you remember? You may not. I'm just asking if you remember.
I don't remember. I mean,
Okay.
these are old emails, but now that I sit here and I see it, I can remember, I guess, receiving this email.
Is that the defendant's email address, ma'am?
Yep,
And is that your email address?
yep.
Okay. Now, on your way to Greenville that day,
Yeah.
did you and the defendant stop and have lunch?
I remember stopping. I don't remember if it was lunch or if it was for a meal, but I remember stopping. I don't remember what the plan was for that day. I'm sure we did.
May I approach, Judge?
You may.
I show you what's been marked State's Exhibit number 18. Can you identify that for me, please?
It says Mall of Georgia,
Where's it to, ma'am?
a macaroni grill.
Okay, is that where you and the defendant had lunch that day? on the
Yeah,
way?
that sounds about right.
Okay. And what time was that receipt for?
At 13:37.
Be 1:37?
Yeah.
Okay. Your Honor, State would move to admit 18.
No objection.
All right. It's submitted without objection.
On the way to Greenville after the macaroni grill, did you and the defendant stop and purchase a bottle of wine from a Publix?
I remember purchasing a bottle of wine at a Publix. I don't know what time of day that was.
May I approach, Judge?
You may.
Ma'am, this is marked State's Exhibit number 19. Can you identify that for me, please?
Sure. Greenville. Credit
And
card.
Would that
$5.
represent the receipt for the Your Honor, State moves to admit State's 19.
Any objection?
No objection.
19 is admitted without objection.
Did you have adjoining rooms when you got to Greenville? Do you remember?
Yes, I believe they were.
Okay. And do you remember having dinner at Casbah Restaurant?
Yes.
And that would be after you got to Greenville, correct?
Yes.
Judge, may I approach?
You may.
Ma'am, this is number 20. State's 20. Can you identify that for me, please?
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yep.
that yes, ma'am? You have to say yes or no.
Yes.
And is that the receipt for your dinner at the Casbah with the defendant?
Yes.
And dinner was a total of, without tip, $84,
Yes.
and included a $31 bottle of wine, correct?
Okay. Correct. I can't see it. It's kind of faded, but yes,
May I
sure.
publish it,
You
Judge?
may publish it.
Publish. Okay. On the very top, can you amplify that, Andy?
Yes, I remember because we joked that the wine was named what's written on here.
It is a unique name, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. State would move to admit State's 20, Judge.
All right. Any objection?
No objection.
All right, it's admitted without objection.
Now, you remember...
Is that, excuse me, is that supposed to be the name of the wine? Ma'am, is that the name of the
It
wine?
is. It is.
Yes,
What is
Judge.
that? I can't see it.
Oh, I don't know.
Read it, Judge.
No, she can read it.
It's
Can you?
called Pitch, Judge.
that's the name of the wine.
I didn't pick it, Judge.
All right. You may continue.
Yes, sir. Now, when you left Greenville the next morning, let me rephrase that. How many days did you stay in Greenville?
Just overnight.
Okay.
Had early morning meetings the
Now-
next day.
Do you remember sending an email, an angry email to the defendant that next day?
I don't remember the actual contents of the email.
May I approach, Judge?
You may.
Judge, this is stipulation 4949, and I believe we've got it connected, but it's 4953 as well.
4953?
The pages, yes,
Yes,
Judge.
sir.
I show you it's marked State's Exhibit number 21. Can you identify that for me, please?
Okay.
Do you recognize that email, ma'am?
Yeah.
Okay, now, first page.
Right. This is the one that was read during opening arguments.
Yes, ma'am. We're going to go back through it again.
Great.
Ma'am, I'm going to read the part that is listed for Hemi, and I'm going to ask you to read the part that you sent. This is dated August 27, 2010, correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And that's your email address?
Yes.
And the defendant's?
Yes.
And Hemi writes, I caused you so much pain when all I wanted was to give you so much. I know it doesn't help, but I am sorry. I shouldn't have come over. You are so beautiful, such a great person. And in the conversation about Addie, I discovered the mature, responsible mama, Andrea. Don't respond. And how did you respond?
You want me to read my response?
Please.
I really don't know what to say at this point. I am angry. Your apology is heartfelt. but does not make the ongoing pain go away that I now have to repent and live with for the rest of my life. Not sure what I was thinking. I'm also feeling that we may have ruined, I don't know what that says, may have ruined it, not sure. I'm not trying to be hurtful, I'm just trying to be honest. I'm not sure how to live with this. I remember that evening at dinner, we walked out of that dinner like best buddies. That whole dinner was a masterful manipulation.
Okay, I turn to the second page of that email.
Yep.
Hemi Neuman says, "This is the last one from me. I know it won't help, but please never forget how much I love you." And how did you respond?
I know, but so do other people. I betrayed them all. I'm not sure how to deal with that for now, but my burden, not yours.
What happened in Greenville, man?
We were holding each other's hands, and that's it. It may sound worse than it is, but to me, that was a betrayal.
So you're repenting in the email, at least, from holding his hand.
Yep.
Okay. Judge State moves to admit States 21. It is stipulated.
Any objection? Admitted without objection.
You remember what time you checked out of your room?
I assume it was in the morning because we had things to do in the morning. Tour, a plant tour, things like that. I don't know. What time? 9, 9:30, 10?
And what time did you leave Greenville? Do you remember?
Probably lunchtime because I wanted to get home before traffic and to pick up my kids. So I'd imagine we left before lunch, or ate lunch, then probably left Greenville.
May I approach, Judge?
You may.
Show you what's marked State's Exhibit number 22. Can you identify this item for me, please?
Yep, it's a receipt from
What's-
P.F. Chang's
So you
at lunchtime in, I don't know, on Woodruff Avenue. I presume this is in Greenville.
And where that, was that Greenville, you said?
Yes, I don't know exactly where we stopped, but I'm going to go with yes, Greenville.
So you stopped and had lunch before you came
Yep.
back?
That's correct.
Okay. Your Honor, State moves to admit States 22.
Any objection?
No objection.
Admitted without objection.
Did GE pay for that whole trip? I mean, these receipts that we have in the hotel rooms, did GE pay for those?
I assume so. When you travel on business, you have your meals paid for, yes. And your hotel.
After the GE trip, did the defendant ever tell you again that he loved you?
Sure, there were times in passing where he shared those feelings with me,
Yeah.
all of which I dismissed. I can't cite a specific day that happened.
But did he tell you that he loved you? Surely you would remember if someone that wasn't your husband told you he loved you.
Every time he expressed his feelings for me, I treated it as very insignificant, or tried to downplay it as much as I could.
Okay.
So I can't cite a specific day, and
I'm
did
not asking you to
did he
cite it.
say that he loved me? I'm sure that it happened, and all the times we traveled together said he expressed his feelings for me.
So that would be a
But-
yes.
Yes.
I'm not trying to give you an answer. I'm just saying, did he ever express his feelings for you? Did he tell you he loved you after the Greenville trip?
To my face, I don't think so. But
Okay, how about not to your face? Did he ever express to you in some other communicative form that he loved you?
there was this email about, marry me, love me, which seemed just completely ridiculous.
So you're not familiar with any other time or format that he would have done that?
I did not keep track and didn't pay attention.
Okay, now I'm going to get... You didn't keep track. Does that mean it happened and you just don't know how many times?
I'm sure. Okay, yes, it happened.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
I've got stipulation page 3841 and 3842. Ma'am, I hand you what's been marked State's Exhibit number 23. Can you identify that item for me, please?
Mm-hmm.
Is that
This is not my email. I
I'm
mean,
sorry?
this is not to me.
I understand.
Okay.
Do you recognize it?
What was the question?
Do you recognize it?
Do you recognize it?
Do I recognize the email?
Do you understand? But it was a forwarded email. Look
Oh,
down to the
I
next
see.
paragraph. See your
Uh-huh.
address? Is that your GE address?
This is from Hemi to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Is that your email address?
Yep.
Is that his email address?
It is.
Okay, the second paragraph. May I publish it, Judge?
You may.
Put the second paragraph up. Can you blow that up, Andy? It'll work. No, that won't work. Just put it that way. Follow me on the second paragraph.
Okay.
The betrayal and anger is not about what you, parentheses, we did.
Uh-huh.
It's a cop-out. It's about how you felt, what you wanted. How you felt when we looked at the stars in Tahoe, when we woke up Friday morning in Denver,
Mm-hmm.
when we walked out of the restaurant on Thursday, when you took my hand and nestled your head on my shoulder.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Did that happen?
Did what happen?
Did you wake up together in Denver, in Tahoe?
No.
Okay. At the bottom, where the defendant, just below that, Andy, single line.
What paragraph?
At the bottom, Judge, single line, Andy. No, above that, Andy. It says, think about it, be with me forever. Would that be normal communication between your boss and you?
He pretended to be my friend, and I was doing the best that I can to deal with that situation. And he had my whole life wrapped up.
I understand. Did you feel be with me forever is a friend?
No, but that's the way I looked at him. So I can't control what he said to me. I can only control what I said to him.
Go one line down, Andy. Okay. The next,
Yep.
he asks you,
Right.
he says, marry me.
Yep.
That could be a friend too, but this man is not your boyfriend and not your husband.
Right. I viewed it very much as a silly boy email. He was being silly and stupid. And in fact, I spoke with him about that email at work in person and told him to stop.
And this is the same email where he says you and he woke up together in
Yeah.
Denver. And that's the same place
No, he didn't say we said we woke up Friday morning in Denver. He was there. He doesn't say that we woke up together. Okay, you added that.
when we woke up
On Friday morning in Denver.
Denver.
Yeah, that's what he said. When we woke
Did that
up.
not give you cause for alarm?
I was doing the best I could to keep my job and keep everything together. I try not to be alarmed by a whole lot of anything that he did.
On the
It
next,
wasn't an important part of my life.
go to the next page. Andy.
Is this still exhibit number 23?
Yes,
On the
sir.
next- All right, go ahead.
Next page. The defendant says, marry me again.
That's what I was looking at before.
That's the second page.
Uh-huh.
There's 2 pages, ma'am.
Yep,
Okay.
that's the only marry me I can see on the page. But
No,
I-
turn to
We
the
want you to
second
turn to
page.
the next page.
Yes.
Turn it over. There we
Yeah,
go.
he says it twice in the same email, like as an introduction and as a closure.
And you just accepted this as
Yep.
normal.
Well, it's not normal behavior. It's man who has feelings for woman who can't have her behavior.
Your Honor, state moves to admit states 23, it's stipulated.
Any objection?
Objection.
Amendment without objection.
Okay, so you're saying you spoke to him, right?
I did.
Okay. So when you got back, he asked you to marry him, and you speak to him and tell him, what, stop, don't do it again?
Yep.
Does he do it again?
Does he ask me to marry him again?
Does he continue this type of behavior?
He went back to being, all these times where I would say, stop being so ridiculous and stop being silly, he'd go right back to being my best friend. Very normal behavior for him. Yes, I understand. You're committed to your family. You're a good person. It would go back for about a week or two to being normal behavior, a couple of days, and then maybe there'd be 1 or 2 comments every once in a while that would be made.
So was it common for him to tell you that he loved you?
I don't think common, was it, did it, it seems common, but I don't, like I said, I didn't process it or take it seriously, so I can't use the word, I don't know what you're referring to by common.
The number of times this occurred.
It seems that way when you put this together, yes, but we also had about 5,000 other email communications about a lot of other things that did not include marry me or I love you.
But there's plenty that did have that.
It
right?
seemed that, yeah, that's true.
Okay. At any time did you ever tell GE?
No,
At any time did you ever tell Rusty?
nope.
Judge, may I approach?
You may.
Judge, this is stipulation page 4328.
Thank you.
I hand you what's marked State's Exhibit number 24. Can you identify that for me?
This is, yeah, I guess it's from me, my email. Is that what? Okay.
And in that email, does Hemi tell you that he loves you?
This is 3/4 of a month later.
It's actually about 2 weeks later, right?
What's the date on that?
2.5 weeks later. It's
Ms. Snyderman,
September.
Ms. Sneiderman, what's the date on the email?
September 17th. The last one was on August 29th. And he says, we talk about work stuff, knows I'm troubled. Oh, and I love you, which, again, he was back to being as some loving friend, so that just didn't seem to be that big of a deal to me.
So that was, I love you, was just a loving friend, your boss.
Yep.
Okay. And after that, after marry me, after I love you, and I love you, and I love you, and I love you, you took a week-long trip to England with him, didn't you?
I was required to go to England to visit the people that worked for me.
That's yes.
Yes. And
Okay.
I have several people that work for me overseas, and this was my opportunity to meet them for the first time since I had worked for the company in their locations. Plus, there was a quality review going on in that location. He was not supposed to attend that trip with me.
But you planned the trip with him.
Once it got close and he decided that he could go on the trip, yes, that's correct. In fact, I planned that trip with my husband. He sat there with me planning the itinerary that has circulated. I sat in the office, planned an itinerary. Rusty helped me with that itinerary. Rusty, in fact, was the one that suggested, because I love musicals so much, that I go to the theater, hence the discussion with Hemi about going to the theater.
Judge, may I approach?
You may.
This is States 25. It is 4436 and 4437. And this is States 25. Can you identify that for me, please?
Okay. Yeah, yes. Identify that it's from me and it's his email.
And in that email, doesn't the defendant suggest a dance club?
Yeah, he does.
And what is your response?
That sounds fun. I don't know, where is
Right there in
that?
the middle where it says, what a fantastic idea.
Yeah, what a fantastic idea. Yes, we can, that's it, just what a fantastic idea. I'm a trained dancer. I've been taking dance lessons since I was 5. Going to dance clubs is something I don't get much of an opportunity to do. When I've gone out with work with other people in the past, it's something that when it's suggested, it seemed like such a great, fun activity to do. We did not do that when we went to England.
Okay, but
So,
this is a man that's not your husband.
yeah, I understand.
That is...
When I go to dance clubs, I don't go to dance with a man. That's not why I go.
I'm just saying, this is a gentleman who has bothered you
Mhm.
with, I love you,
Yep,
and marry me.
yep.
And it's a fantastic idea to go with him to a dance club in England.
If that's how you're reading the email, I suppose that's...
Then tell me how to read it. I just know English.
There was a lot of back and forth about the itinerary, and we were just bouncing ideas off of each other. And so for me to say what a fantastic idea,
Well-
I don't really know how to respond to that. Then I just say yes, we can figure it out. And I mean, these all when Rusty and I have traveled internationally, we always would say to make the most of going on these international trips, hence my suggestion on the theater and other things. You don't get to go to these places very often, so when you're going, you might as well make the most of it. And so I was pretty excited about the trip as a whole. It's not really a place that I get to go. But I do want to just note that we did not go to that dance club. In fact, we did not do any of the things that are insinuated that we did on that itinerary, because there are definitely points during this manipulation that I was under, which is exactly what it was, that I realized that every activity we were doing, every situation that he put me in, was a convenient situation for him to get what he wanted, to get me in a position that he wanted, to get me to spend time with him. And when we were in England, I realized that none of that was appropriate. And so we did not do any of that.
Next question.
Yes, sir. But this was a month or so after you just told him that something had happened that was so egregious that you had to repent for the rest of your life?
That's maybe an exaggeration of the email, but yeah, that's how I felt at the time. I'm a pretty wholesome individual, so yep. Having any feelings at all towards Hemi Neuman, caring about him at all, I admit to caring about Hemi Neuman. That is, he managed to get me to care about him, and that's actually the point. He was very good at that, very good at manipulating everyone around him to feel bad for him.
So did you care about him?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Now, on this England trip, you indicated that you planned with Rusty. Did you ever indicate that you were going to plan these activities with the defendant?
Oh, Rusty and I were in at home, and at the same time, Hemi was kind of, I don't know where he was at the time, but we were emailing back and forth trip itineraries and costs and where we were going to be on every day. That was all happening at the same time. And yes, Rusty knew that I was doing that.
May I approach, Judge?
You may.
This is States 26. It's stipulation 5095. I showed you 26, ma'am. Can you identify that for me, please?
Yep. Okay.
Is that more about the England planning?
Yeah, we were joking about my trip planning skills, and how Rusty and I are fairly meticulous in how we organize things and spreadsheets, and every day was planned out, morning, afternoon, evening. So that's what we were talking about in this email.
But in that email, the defendant indicates he's fine if we plan together. More fun, right?
Yeah,
Okay, what were you planning?
this spreadsheet that I'm talking about.
Okay. Were you planning sightseeing?
There was one place that I wanted to see in Scotland.
Did you see that with the defendant?
I did.
What was that?
The castle, Edinburgh Castle, I believe. And that was my idea. I wanted to go see that while I was there. I didn't have any plans of going back to that location anytime soon.
And you saw that with the defendant and not your husband?
Correct.
Your Honor, that states 26. State would move to admit it. It's stipulated.
All right. Any objection? Never without objection. You may continue.
Yes, sir. During that time of moving back and forth in England, let me back up. Describe the trip in England. What was involved with the trip in England?
We had to visit 2 locations. So I don't remember exactly what the names of all the airports are, but we flew into one place and went to Edinburgh first, met all the people at that location. That was a day. And then we switched locations to the London or outside of, I actually don't remember where that was. Anyway, where the other location was, and we stayed there for a couple of days, and then we were flying out on a Saturday morning because we had, so we stayed in London, closest to the airport Friday night, so that we could get to the airport on Saturday. Because the location we were at, these are not places that are close to the major airports. They're fairly, not remote towns, but not close.
Did you ever book a single room for the both of you with your credit card number?
No. A single room for the both of us? No.
Okay. Judge, may I approach?
You may.
This is stipulated 4323. Ma'am, I hand you what's been marked State's Exhibit number 27. Can you identify that item for me, please?
Uh-huh.
Isn't that your email?
Yep.
I have a hold on the courthouse DoubleTree.
Right.
We can switch to your card when we get there?
Right. I put on my work Amex, I made the reservation for the one night in London.
Okay.
So that's what this is.
Well, wouldn't you each put?
When I'm making the reservation, I don't have his credit card, his Amex, his work Amex. So, no. And when he got there, he switched it to his and stayed in his room.
So this indicates 2 rooms?
So I had on hold, and this is from me, the courthouse DoubleTree, and I was confused by where the locations were. I don't remember which one we actually ended up staying in. I remember going back and forth.
Were you reading that? Because
Yeah.
what's on the screen is not what you were saying, so I'm trying to understand.
It says I
Are you
have on
reading
hold.
from the email?
I am.
Go ahead. Read it, because I'm seeing something different there. Would you read what's on the email?
Yeah, it says I have on hold the courthouse DoubleTree by Hilton, London, Regent Street. Does that work okay for you? We can switch to your card and Hilton number when we get there, meaning for his room. You can switch to his Hilton number so that he can get credit for his room, as opposed to mine.
Okay.
I was sort of responsible for making all these plans. And then I talk about, I don't know, well, he says, I don't know why we ended up with the Euston Street Hilton. That's near Regent. Make sure you get it right when you give it to the driver. I don't know.
Okay, Judge State would move to admits number 27. It's stipulated.
All right, any objection? 27 is admitted without objection. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening for about an hour and a half. Deputy Moore is going to assist me by giving you a brief stretch break. Deputy Moore, about 10 minutes.